Hello, good afternoon. This is Menachem Nissel, live in a Neve Yerushalayim classroom over here. We have Eliana, and we have all kinds of wonderful people, some real, some imagined, here in this classroom. And the topic of today is part 3 of my series on navigating the world of Shidduchim. And today's class is called the Shadchan. Okay, that's today's class. Just a quick reminder of the story so far. In the first class, I gave my introduction, and we asked the question, what is the purpose of marriage? And we explained the Torah viewpoint of the purpose of marriage is very, very clear. It's to create a miniature of the Beis HaMikdash, meaning we are trying to create something kadosh. A Jewish home has walls. Those walls are permeated with the holiness of the Shabbos table, of the laughter of children, of the sounds of the father studying Torah, good food, good times, good memories, but all of them imitates what we saw in the Beis HaMikdash as we create a little world of Kedusha. Your future husband will put on your ring, on your finger a ring and say, Hariyat Mekudeshes Li. What we're creating is something based on Kedusha. And when we asked the question, when are you ready? We gave basically 2 answers. Number 1 is to understand the value system of what a Jewish home is all about. And I explained that before you start dating, you have to know what your hashkafas are, what your world viewpoint is, what kind of home you want to have. Do you want to live in Israel, live in America? The standards of your home has to be something that you share with your future chassan. And we also mentioned that you have to know what relationships are all about, because the best marriages are when 2 people are very different, but somehow you blend and you work together. Those are the most exciting marriages, where 1 and 1 does not equal 2, but 1 and 1 equals a bias, a Jewish home built on Kedusha. So that was all my first class. The second class was called What to Look For. Yeah, this is what to look for. So the main point of my second class is to switch your way that you look at a guy from the way you did as a teenager to the way you do when you recognize that most of your married life, you are going to be grandparents. My gosh, what a horrible thought. But it's not rocket science. Aryeh Mazel Tov, my cameraman, just had a little boy. So if you think about it, it could be that in 20 years plus a little bit, you'll be a grandfather, Aryeh. And that's it. And then how far will you be into your marriage? And you plan to, let's say, by the time you're 50, you're grandpa, and then you don't plan to die at 75. So it's not big rocket science math. Most of your married life, you're going to be grandparents. And when you turn 60 and you have another 30, 40, 50, 60 years left, as my muchatenis has said to me, if you wake up in the morning and nothing hurts, you're probably dead. Yeah, so that's it. But if you got a great marriage, then your 60s and 70s and 80s, that part of your life is all Gan Eden with all the pain, because you got the most important part of your life, you got it right. The centerpiece, which is your marriage, your bias, you got right. If you get your bias right, the chances of raising your kids right and everything else falling into place have just exponentially increased with no end. So you prioritize when you're looking for a guy. So obviously you have to be attracted to him. Obviously you have to laugh with him. Obviously he has to be a person that you trust, a person that you think that will take care of you, the person that you respect. But most important of all is that your vision of how you're going to get to the world to come, your vision of how you're going to build a world and make it better to get there, he's the one that is going to be accompanying you along that journey. That has to be central and has to be in the right place. That is my second class in a nutshell. And now we get to today's presentation about the Shadchan. So honestly, I wish that you never have to see a shadchan. As my Rebbe, Rav Shapiro, used to say, the best shidduchim is friends recommending friends. So you got a married friend, she's got a husband, and he's got friends who are single, and over dinner the 2 of them plot together like witches in a Shakespeare, double, Doyle in trouble, and they come out with this maybe you should date him. Those shidduchim are the best. I always advise young shadchanim to maybe have somebody with a little bit more experience to hold your hands along the way, but those are always the best shidduchim. However, in practice, the system that is most prevalent in our circles, in religious circles, is the system of going to a Shadchan. A Shadchan is a brilliant idea, but it comes with a whole package of problems. The idea of the Shadchan is that you avoid having to go through, randomly going to whatever it is, to parties or simchas, whatever it means, and somebody says you like that guy and talk to him and whatever it is, so it's awful, okay? Just ask anyone that's come out of the secular world, with Chas v'Shalom, you ever saw all those rom-com movies of how people find each other. It's awful, it comes with so much pain, and as we all know, it's not just, to quote from Shrek, that celebrity marriages don't last long, but unfortunately, most marriages don't last long. And that is because they never really worked it through at the beginning to make sure that this makes sense with the bigger picture. So the Shadchan is supposed to help you along the way. The idea of a Shadchan is that she or he screens who you're dating, so you pretty much know what you're getting right up front, so there's no surprises. And as I always say, the more research that you do beforehand, the easier and the more comfortable the actual dating is going to be. So let's go through this step by step. The very first thing is to recognize with complete recognition that the Shadchan is nothing more than a tool. Just like the whole of dating is really a tool, it's what's called in Hebrew hishtadlus. You should go through the efforts of finding your better half, your equal, right? Better half is what we say about our wives. But to find your zivug, to find your beloved, you need to go through what's called hishtadlus. You have to go through the motions of going through that journey. And the Shadchan is just a tool. It's just like you have to take care of your health, and your dentist is just a tool. That's the way you have to see a Shadchan. The fact that people, we're going to mention this in a moment, have so many issues with Shadchanim is something that you should, right up front, understand that just like everyone likes their dentist, and the dentist could be a good dentist, but you may not enjoy him as a person or her as a person, the same way with the Shadchan as well. The Shadchan is a tool to help you find Mr. Right. So in my circles, the person that works the Shadchan, I'm talking about here in Haredi land in Har Nof, that's where I'm sitting over here. It's my wife that takes care of our kids. It's the mother of the girl that works with the Shadchan. And it's a different vibe, it's a different dynamic. But the ones who are listening to me on Torah Anytime or wherever it may be, my Dar Kabina students, whoever it is that's listening at the moment, so you're probably going to have to go to the Shadchan yourself, which is a different dynamic. The Shadchan is going to talk to you, try and get to know you, try and get a feel for you, and then we'll take out from her little stack of papers and says, maybe you should go out with Reuven, and Shimon's a backup. And that's the way that it works. And then you take out Reuven's file, and Reuven has his own CV, his own, what's the word for it? Resume, thank you, right? His own resume. And you realize that there's a whole bunch of names of his friends, and his rabbi, and his teacher, and stuff like that. Just remember that they are all being paid to lie for him. Now, okay, so Eliana, I will lie for you, okay, if necessary. But obviously, when I say lie, I don't mean lie. I mean that in the Shemona Esrei, I say the words Elokai, Nitzar L'Shoni Meira, Usfasai Midabe Mirma, that my lips should not speak trickery. And Rosh Schwab used this as an example, that sometimes we enter the Shadchan, they'll ask me, so is she smart? So I say to myself, compared to someone with learning disabilities who's like on the spectrum, she's not stupid. So I say, she's smart. And I'm thinking, she's not really smart at all, but she's just smarter than so many other people. Is she pretty? Well, I think to myself, if you put her on the same plate as a herring, she will come out on top. I'm just joking, by the way. Yeah, so we train ourselves to be, whatever it is, to be tricky in how we answer, because we care about our friends, and I care about my students, and I want to set them up for success. If you want to get to know about the boy, so if you can, get someone to do research for you from those people that know him who are not on the list. It's my own personal advice, and whatever it is that you can find out without going crazy about it, you should do. You should get someone to do the questioning for you. It's not your place to make phone calls. Someone should be doing it for you. If you have to do it, then there's no other choice. But if you can, you should try and find a mentor, or ideally, once again, like I mentioned earlier, your mother or a parent or a sister or a brother or a relative or a married friend to do the questionings for you. And that's the way that you get your research that is sort of more objective. And at the end of the day, we're going to talk about in a moment. It's not going to help you. We'll get to that in a moment. But before I do that, I want to say something very, very important. When you go to the Shadchan, before the Shadchan gives you your who she thinks is good for you, she's going to be asking you questions. Now, I want to explain to you that the Shadchan is not God. The Shadchan, 95% of cases, is just a good person. And she went into this business because she cares about people. She wants to solve the SHIDDUCH crisis, or whatever it may be. Okay, the good people, they're not perfect, and they're trying to figure you out. So they ask you all kinds of personal questions. And it's extremely, extremely annoying and embarrassing and sometimes invasive, but they're just doing their job, and you just have to deal with it. Like I mentioned beforehand, it's like going to the dentist. But I want to tell you that before you go into the Shadchan, think about what you really, really, really want, and it is in the nuances that they are going to decide who they should date, who they should find for you, and I want to explain to you what I mean. Unfortunately, as you probably know, she probably has a huge stack of girls and a smaller stack of boys. It's just the way it goes, for reasons that we don't need to discuss now. But the system is a little bit, seems to be set up for failure for women. Part of the reason is because it's so hard today in 2024, the world that we live in, to create really, really good quality guys. And trust me, there are a lot of amazing, amazing guys out there, and you want to find them. So I, as a rabbi, am going to say to you that the most important thing that you want is not money, even though I understand that money is very important, and I have zero problem with you wanting to feel protected and to want to feel that you have, you're going to be able to have the basic quality of life to make yourself happy, and that definition will vary from young woman to young woman. What is your minimum needs, and you want to be provided for? I get that. But at the end of the day, that just is going to be the basics for your happiness. Your true happiness is that you feel that you're flourishing, and to flourish, you feel that your home stands for something, and you're accomplishing something, and you have a husband of quality that is helping you along that path. So for me, if you can find yourself a Ben Torah, and my definition of a Ben Torah is not necessarily kolo, we could discuss it another time. My definition of a Ben Torah is someone that sets aside time for Torah learning, and when he does, that is like the centerpiece of his day. He understands that he builds his other 23 hours organically out of that 1 hour of recreating his yeshiva world. Those kind of guys, very often, again, it's not a hard and fast rule, but if you get yourself a Ben Torah and someone that really worked hard on his midos, really, really works hard on Shmiras Einayim to make sure he doesn't look at anything inappropriate, those kind of guys, it's going to make such a huge difference to your life. How do you make sure that you get them? So it's all about the nuances. So you walk into the Shadchan, and the Shadchan says, what are you looking for? Let me give you an example, okay? You know there's a phrase called a learner-earner. So a learner-earner is someone who learns Torah and has a job and makes money. That is like a classic thing. A girl wants a learner-earner. But listen to the nuances. If you come in and you say, I want a learner-earner, right? A learner-earner, meaning when she probes you, you talk about how it's important for you to have a decent level of living. You can't slum it, and you talk about that. And then you talk about the importance of Torah. Or you say a learner-earner, which means you come in as follows, and you say, look, I'm building a Torah home For me, the Torah quality of the home is everything. It happens to be that I need my creature comforts. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Trust me, you're just being honest with yourself and you're being factual. You need your creature comforts. You need to be able to just the basic quality of life. You can't slum it. For my own kids, I don't think that it's healthy for them to live in poverty. You want to make sure that you feel that you have a husband that you can trust, that's going to provide for you, and so on and so forth. That's not a problem. But it's the passion, the way you talk about Torah in contrast to the, like, I also need to be taken care of, the lack of passion when it comes to talk about money, that the Shadchan or the Shadchanit will take note and will give you a different type of a guy. Because it's all about the passion. It's all about what's important for you. You look into someone's head, what are they thinking about? The ruchnius of their kids or the gashmius of their kids? I just gave a parenting class in another context, and I told over a story about a kid that went off the derech and no longer religious. And when he explained to the rabbi that told me the story what went wrong, he gave one example. He said, every night before I went to sleep, my mother always said to me two things: brush your teeth and say the Shema. But I noticed that she always would check up on me to make sure that I brushed my teeth. She never asked me if I said the Shema. It was very obvious to me where her passion was. I had to brush my teeth. Shema Nunu. Okay, so she got that message from her mom that Ruchnius was less important than Gashmius. Just using that as an example. And exactly the same way that you are going to raise your home. At the end of the day, the most important thing for you is to build a Torah home, to make sure that your kids are set up for success, that they can have the best life and have maximum olam haba. That's what you want to do for your children and for your home. So let the Shadchan know that. Let the Shadchan hear in your voice the passion that you have to build that Torah home. And then you can ask for the other things that are important for you. When you talk about kollel, so you have to be a moment of honesty. You can't say, I want a long-term kollel when you're so not ready for it. But you can say, 1 year or 2 years or whatever it is, I'd like to start off my marriage in Yerushalayim, or whatever it is that you want to say. Or you can have whatever is your vision, out of town, Kiruv, or living in Israel, not living. All these other things are secondary. But it's, again, the point that I want to make for you is that the Shadchan is going to be listening to where your passion is, and you have to make sure that when you come and you sit down right up front, you lay out the really important things that you're looking for, and then in turn, when she goes through that list of boys, okay, all those boys out there, she's going to give you a better kind of a guy. That's a little tip that I'm giving you. Now, let me get back over here to how the Shadchan system works. I have a phrase called the tyranny of the Shadchan. I just want to tell you, because I've been doing this for so many years, many girls come out of a Shadchan and they feel crushed, right? They feel humiliated. This is a real problem. Girls feel that they have been disrespected by the Shadchan, and I'll tell you why. Because they do what I just told you, their whole pitch. The Shadchan comes along and gives them this mediocre boy. And what happens? I'll tell you what happens. I'll tell you the secret about Shadchan. Shadchan's not a bad person, but she needs to categorize you. So in her mind, she's got to give you what I call numbers, from 0 to 100. So she asks you tell me about your parents. So you say your parents are divorced. So you say that you're telling the truth, right? In her mind, okay, so parents, 5 out of 10, right? Which schools do you, which seminary did you go to? What is your career vision? She's looking at your looks and all kinds of things like that. And she's judging. That's what they do. Shadchanim are judging you. They're judging you. And it's very, very humiliating to be judged. Who are you to judge? You don't know me. Well, they have no choice. This is how the game is worked. They have to try their best. So they'll never get to know you. But they're just trying their best. So what you do is to recognize the following thing. You are going to be judged. Deal with it. Don't get upset about it. At the end, in her mind, you got a 60 out of 100, right? And she looks at the boys, and she gives you a 40 out of 100. Why? Because she's got so many boys. So, you're getting a 40 out of 100. She sees you as a 60 out of 100, and you just feel this whole system is wrong. I want to tell you something from the bottom of my heart. something I honestly believe in. If we believe that all shidduchim are made in heaven, and we also believe that human beings, they don't know you, and they have no ability to judge you. There is an objective way of judging you and me, and that's what I call, how are you doing on your personal ladder? Anyone that has me as a teacher knows I talk all the time about ladders. Ladders means that in your mother's womb, you were shown a ladder, and you're climbing from 0 to 100, or whatever it means, 0 to 20, whatever life, whatever Gilgal, whatever stage you are in your life, you have to climb your ladder and be the best person you can be. When you're judged by your ladder and how well you did in that world of the womb that the Malach showed you. So she gave you a 60 out of 100. In Hashem's eyes, you're a 90 out of 100. Hashem's eyes, which is the only true objective truth, you're a superstar. And it's so important that you believe that you are a superstar. If you don't have self-esteem, don't believe in yourself, you're not going to end up with a great guy. You have to walk into that Shadchan and say to yourself, whoever finds me is a lucky guy. You have to believe in yourself and believe that you're a 90 out of 100. That boy is a 40 out of 100. You don't know, at least until you get to know him well, what his struggles are, what his ladder was. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his infinite genius, knows that 40 out of 100 is also a 90, is also a 90 out of 100. There's no question about it that he's also an amazing guy. And the two of you are going to build a spectacular home, much more beautiful than anybody else in Hashem's eyes, which is the only thing that matters. And that's it. A little bit trust in God, that follow the system and meet this guy and try and see what's amazing about him. And the two of you can build something special, to build something truly beautiful. My point is, the tyranny of the Shadchan is only on paper. It's all in their minds. In reality, it's what Hashem sees that matters. So walk the walk, talk the talk, go through the motions of the Shadchanim, and ultimately recognize that everything is in Hashem's hands. And I want to develop this just a little bit further, if I may. I mentioned beforehand that you should research the guy. I mentioned how very often it's just useless to call up people that are being used for recommendations, because they're basically paid to say what they want to say. And it happens to be that you're going to do your Ishtadlus. Ishtadlus means that, for example, if I do research on a person, a little bit, I trained myself how to read between the lines, how to ask the right questions. It's a bit of a game, so I sort of get a feel for a person. I ask questions like, what would you say is his strong point? So you see it, the person says davening, that's like an eye-opener. The person says his learning is a strong point. He says his chesed, it shows something about him. Right? And then I also notice, if I ask them, just talk about the guy. What do they mention first? Like I mentioned beforehand, when you're passionate about Torah before you mention money, and then I hear, what does the recommender, what does he say first about this guy? So it's possible to pick up all kinds of information by doing your research. But at the end, there's only so much we can find. So I have over there, first of all, I'm looking at the clock over here. I don't want to go on forever and ever and ever. But I want you to know that try a little experiment. Go up to any married couple you know. They've been married for many years. Ask them, what did they know about their spouse under the chuppah? Could be on paper they knew everything. Could be every statistic about the person they know. Every single grade he ever got in school, his favorite color, his favorite sports team, his favorite Rebbe, his favorite way he wants to live, all kinds of information you know. You could write a 10-page essay about this guy. But 10 years into the marriage, I ask you, do you know him? They always laugh, because they realize that everything under the chuppah was completely and totally irrelevant. It's a crazy thing, right? My photographer is giving me nods over here, okay? And how many years are you into your marriage? Okay, it's not even 3 years. But everything you find is different, and hopefully it's good, right? You find out all kinds of beautiful surprises. You find a lot about yourself. Honestly, there's a certain point in a great marriage where you can't even say in words how the marriage works and how well you know that person. Which, by the way, since I'm giving this class between Pesach and Shavuos, that's the difference between Torah and mitzvos. Mitzvos is like the relationship between us and God, more like the information, the facts, the statistics. You want to become close to God, put on tefillin in the morning, light candles on Erev Shabbos. But Torah, the study that goes on in the Beis Medrash, that's getting to know Hashem in a way that you can't even quantify in words. It's a much deeper level. And that's what happens in a good marriage. So all you're doing is hishtadlus. All you're doing is trying to see if it feels right and if it looks right. Second thing is that you have that recognition that at the end of the day, everything is mazel, right? Everything is mazel. What do I mean by mazel? The Chazon Ish used to tell a story about how there was, I'm trying to remember how the story went. Once upon a time, there was a building in Bnei Brak, and there was a neighbor. There was a neighbor who everybody hated, and there was one neighbor out of all the 10 neighbors that actually liked this person. By the way, you have this, it's like a tradition here all over Israel. Neighbors that like you, neighbors that don't like you. I've forgotten how the story goes, but the Chazon Ish's point is that people like to call neighbors. They want to see, what's it like your neighbor? The phone call to the neighbor that likes him is 1 in 10. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, and you pick up that 1 in 10, he says nice things, and the shidduch happens. Then you realize a whole different understanding of how Beshet works. The point that he was making is that your research in the end is so much mazel involved. I just want to say a little personal story. I have a daughter, Chava, lives in Carmiel, married to Yehuda Leib Telesnik. Baruch Hashem, beautiful family. Now, Yehuda Leib was learning in the mirror, and I was also learning in the mirror in a different Beis Medrash with my friend Rabbi Yishai Koenigsberg, and we said, you know what, let's go to the Israeli Beis Medrash. Let me find Yehuda Leib. I want to watch him how he learns. This was before the shidduch was actually went into motion. I want to check out this boy. So, happens to be, we went in there, we sit down, and I looked to my chaver and says, how are we going to find this boy? And he says, you can't. Because the split second that you let anyone here figures out that you're here to watch a guy, he's going to find out. Because the Israelis will take care of themselves. So I said, so what are we coming for? I don't know, but we might as well sit and learn. So I sat and learned with my chavruso the rest of the morning in that Beis Medrash, in Friedman it's called, in the mirror, some of you know what I'm referring to. And I happen to remember we were learning a piece from Rav Shach, we're sitting there with the thing open, and I forgot about the fact that we were in that Beis Medrash and that we had come for a totally different person, so I was back into my learning. Little did I know that sitting right next to me was a young man, and he saw that on my Gemara was the name Nissel. And that young, true story, okay, that young man is like, whoa, okay, Nissel, that he has a daughter that's just been read to me, and he watches me learn. So how crazy is that? Instead of me watching him, he ended up watching me. Baruch Hashem, Hodel Hashem Kitov. It worked out very well. But just to keep that in your mind. Your ishtadlus is just ishtadlus. There's only so much you can do. It's in Hashem's hands. Which brings me to the most important part of my presentation. Okay, drum roll. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important part of my presentation. Single most important hishtadlus, and this is the Chazon Ish who says this, and I believe in it with my heart and soul. The single most important hishtadlus is davening, is tefillah, asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be involved in the centerpiece of your Shadchanis, which is why you need to be a davener, and you need to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In my opinion, I'm making up this, as I'm saying to you, by the time you get to the chuppah, 50% of your ishtadlus should be davening, 40% should be your research, and 10% of the actual dating. The only purpose of the dating, ultimately, is to see if you enjoy each other's company, if you laugh together, if you respect each other, you had a good time, you like him, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about tefillah. And I'm going to prove this to you, and most people never notice this. What is the most important parsha of Shidduchim in history? What is the most important parsha of Shidduchim in history? It's Parshas Chayei Sarah, right? This is the first time that something is mentioned. So that's its makar, that's its source. It's a rule. The Gra says this, Tzadok HaKohen says it many times. Always go to the beginnings. Where do we find the story of Hishtadlus for Shidduchim? The answer is with Yitzchak Avinu. What was the Hishtadlus? Everyone knows, Eliezer. He goes and he looks for who's the Baal Chesed that's going to be Chesed to Yitzchak's Gevurah. And we all know the story in Chayei Sarah. That's the Hishtadlus, right? Wrong. The Hishtadlus was Yitzchak Avinu. Every time you daven mincha, you are plugging into the true Hishtadlus that Yitzchak went to the field. The field was the Makom of the Beis Hamikdash, and he davened for a zivug. Boy, was he successful. He takes his 3 steps back, he turns around, and there's Rivka Imenu falling off her camel. But that was the Hishtadlus. That was the super Hishtadlus of Yitzchak Avinu, was tefillah. By the way, if I have your attention, I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little secret. I have in my pocket over here. Okay, I have in my pocket. It's my wallet. Okay, in my wallet, I have a little piece of paper where people that I'm very close to, who are unfortunately what they call older singles. So I've got my little list over here, and I take it out dafke at mincha, because mincha is a time I think for davening for shidduchim. At the end of the Shemona Esrei, before I take my 3 steps back, I daven for my esteemed students who I care about, and I want them to find a shidduch. And mincha, Yitzchak Avinu, it's all about tefillah. You should get to learn how to use the Tehillim or whatever works for you. Honestly, Leah, right? You all know Leah. Leah, her zivug was Esau. Remember the story? She was supposed to marry Esau. Leah was supposed to marry Esau. What did she do? She davened and she davened until Chazal say that all the hair around her eyes disappeared. And her eyes looked like this scary thing from Darth Vader. You should know that Leah was just as beautiful as Rivka and all the other imahos. It's just that her eyes were so scary from all those tears that's what made her look so scary. That's what the Ramban says. But guess what? What did Leah end up with? She ended up with Yaakov Avinu. She ended up being the mother of Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. She ended up being the mother of Mashiach. She did pretty well for herself, all those tears. She aim habanim smecha halaluka. She got everything that she wanted. So what I want to point out to you is you got to become a davener. Not only that, the Gemara at the beginning of Sota says, when it talks about the famous line, Kasha zivugim sheyisual kakriyas yamsuf. Finding a shidduch is like splitting the sea. Splitting the sea is another way of saying it's unnatural. A male and a female are two opposites. Putting them together to create a bias is something as unnatural as splitting the sea. And the Gemara goes on to say, actually, that's not true. It actually is natural to find a shidduch. The Gemara says we're talking about not zivug rishon, zivug sheni, a second marriage. A second marriage could mean literally a second marriage, but Rashi says no. A second marriage means that you can change your besheret to get not that person that you should have married, but the married that you earned through your tears and through your avodas Hashem. You can upgrade yourself. This is the zivug sheni, says Rashi. You can upgrade yourself. You can get yourself someone way better than was designated for you when you were first created. You can give yourself an upgrade. How that works is a different discussion. But you look at Rashi, Sota Daf Beis Amud Aleph, and it's all that. So you have your natural zivug and you have your earned zivug, which is why zivugim in halacha is such a big deal. We just came out of Pesach. If you get engaged during Chol HaMoed, so chaparine, okay, you make an engagement party, even though you shouldn't make it during Chol HaMoed. But the Gemara in Moed Cotton, page 12b, brings down Shema Yekadmena Acher. Maybe there'll be a change of mind and you'll lose that person. So this is sometimes I see older singles. I don't want to say that they were picky. It's not a nice thing to say, but sometimes I feel that they blew their zivug. That was it. They didn't seize the moment, carpe diem, when they saw it coming. And it's very, very important that you're very smart. When you see something is good, you don't chicken out and run away for all the wrong reasons, which unfortunately I see again and again and again. Now, 2 more things and then finished. Segulos, besheret. So we all know there's a thing called segulos for shidduchim. Everyone's heard of a mukah. As I speak, there's probably one of you is listening to me by Reb Shaila in Karaster. Everyone over here in this city goes and spends 30 days by the Kotel. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on. People tell me all kinds of segulos and things. People tell me about their dreams. I don't want to knock it. It's a beautiful thing. I'm here in Hernof. 2 years ago, one of my students, I'm going to tell you her first name because I don't think she cares if you know who it is, but I don't want to tell you. Her first name was Hadar. Very, very close bas bayis to the Nissel family. And Shvi Shel Pesach, we took her literally 2 minutes from here. We took her to the house of Rav Moshe Sternbruch, Zolzayin Gesundheit Stark, one of the Gedolim of Klal Yisrael. Shvi Shel Pesach. And he gave her a bracha. He gave her a bracha. Within the year, she was married. It's a crazy story. She was very nervous. She couldn't find a shidduch. So these things do work. And now comes my point. Never, ever make segulos. Never make the concept of beshert. Never make looking for signs. Never, ever make that a big deal. Never make, always, it should be secondary to your davening. It's always, like Iker and Tafel. The Iker is the Tfilos, the Iker is the Ishtadlis. The Tafel is the beshert and the segulos. It's perfect for Sheva Brachos, telling stories of the Sheva Brachos. I went to Amuka, I did not realize that he was there at the same time. Great, I love those stories. There's all kinds of stories like that. Some of my students have crazy, crazy stories like that. They're perfect for Sheva Brachos. They're perfect for a Mishpacha magazine article. But when it comes down to it, no. You do your hishtadlis, normal, healthy. Tefillah, you do your research, you go out, you use your intellect much more than your heart. Eventually, at some point, obviously when you start dating, the heart has to kick in. You have to start having feelings for the guy. But the point has to be a cerebral process. And segulos is something that is a plus. It happens to be, just by chance, I have this little self-promoting, I have my book over here, Ramesh Shapiro, Looking into the Sun. So there's a whole chapter about segulos and Ayin Hara and all these things which you should read, because it talks about shidduchim. There's also a whole section about advice for all the singles in there, and you'll say, oh my gosh, Ramesh Shapiro sounds like Menachem Nissel. I'm just joking. I just learned everything from him. And another thing is that at the end of the day, you're in his hands. I unfortunately have stories where everything seemed perfect. I once made a shidduch, woohoo, Menachem Nissel made a shidduch, and I had so many stories of siyata d'shmaya about how they met. I was running an NC Swai Shabbaton. The other person who happened to be traveling and happened to be in the same city, she was working there, and he was on a road trip. Crazy stuff. Beautiful people. I was close to both of them. Read the shidduch. They got married. They had 3 kids, and they got divorced. Sorry for saying the D word. They did. So, a little bit in Hashem's hands. You're in His good hands. You and I are not God. We do our best. Hashem has to take care of the rest. But now that I've told you a sad story, I've got to tell you happy stories. And the best story I have is my own story. And I'm not going to tell it to you now because to do it, I can only do it if I tell it well. So you're going to have to type my name into Google, and there's a podcast for meaningful people where I tell my story, how I met my wife. It is insane. Take yourself a box of tissues. There's a lot of drama in that story. And I can tell you that, Baruch Hashem, I had my 40th anniversary, and Hashem held my hand through the hardest moments of my life and brought me to the right person, and we were zocha to do a lot of wonderful things. Hod Hashem Kitov. So put Hashem into the centerpiece of everything in the Shidduch Proverbs. Forget about everything else. It's just hishtadlis. It'll be good for you. And all that's left for me to do here in Yerushalayim HaKodesh is to give you the bracha that you should find the zivug, okay, at the right moment, at the right time, to the right person, and build a bayis l'tiferes me'ein, the bayis shlishi, which we zocha to b'meher v'yameinu. Thank you.